I think it's always kind of been in the back of my mind. I volunteered on a couple campaigns or nominations behind the scenes, um, and that maybe gave me a little interest into it. I had a couple interesting mentors or friends in Calgary who gave me behind the scenes look a little bit in more of a federal level. One was a speechwriter for Stephen Harper, which was very cool. And so I think that kind of gave me a little bit of a peek and an interest. And then from there, it kind of grew.
Welcome to the Cross Border Interviews, the show where we dive into the insights of municipal political leaders from across Canada. Now, our mission on the show is quite simple. Shine a light on the dedicated individuals who day in and day out work around the council table to shape the communities that we call home. And for today's episode, we are chatting with Kellie Sidloski, Councillor for the City of Weyburn, Saskatchewan. Over 10,500 residents call Weyburn their home. Weyburn's main economic base is comprised of agricultural services and shipping, oilfield exploration, manufacturing and processing, and business and industry services. Weyburn's rich soils have made for excellent grain farming in the area, helping make Weyburn the country's highest volume inland grain handling center. Well over 500,000 tons of grain pass through the City of Weyburn terminals each and every year. Now, the bottom line, Weyburn has a solid economic and community foundation on which new opportunities are built. Across Canada, our cities, towns, villages, and rural communities are alive with stories waiting to be told. Stories of innovation and economic development, resilience in the face of the housing challenges, and the financial hurdles municipalities overcome every day. At the Cross Border Network, we bring these stories to life. From coast to coast to coast, we're connecting Canadians to the issues shaping our communities and showcasing the people working tirelessly to make them thrive. With your support, we can expand our reach, amplify more voices, and shine a light on the challenges and triumphs of municipal life. For as little as $3.99 a month, you can help us grow and continue sharing the stories that matter most. Join us today and be part of this important mission. Together, we can tell more stories, build stronger communities, and make a real difference. Support the Cross Border Network now. Visit www.crossborderinterviews.ca today. Councillor, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about yourself and talking about the great community of the City of Weyburn, Saskatchewan. I want to start, though, by talking about you, getting to know the person behind the persona of title of councillor. Kellie, I'm going to start with the same question I've asked every single person who's ever come on this show. Where did your sense of duty to serve your community come from, Kellie?
Absolutely. I think my sense of duty to serve came from maybe an overall desire to make a difference. I said throughout my campaigning that I have a passion for people and community, and I truly mean that. And so I think when I sat back and thought to myself, how am I able to make a positive impact or difference in the world? And this opportunity came up, I thought, why not try it? Yeah.
Had you considered politics prior to entering into the political arena in 2024?
I think it's always kind of been in the back of my mind. I volunteered on a couple campaigns or nominations behind the scenes, and that maybe gave me a little interest into it. I had a couple interesting mentors or friends in Calgary who gave me behind the scenes look a little bit in more of a federal level. One was a speechwriter for Stephen Harper, which was very cool. And so I think that kind of gave me a little bit of a peek and an interest. And then from there, it kind of grew.
Was mom and dad political? Where'd you get your
No,
political
not at
bug?
all.
Really? So where'd the political bug come for Kellie? Because I could tell you, mine came from my dad because he was one of those people that was very passionate. And I remember sitting up and watching the 1993 elections come in, and then every subsequent election after that from across Canada. So where did your political bug come from, or were you just sort of thrust into it through friends?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no family history of it, anything like that. I think once I just kind of got a feel for it behind the scenes, it became of interest to me. And I thought, when I just look at making a difference, I thought maybe this is an avenue that I should pursue.
So why municipal? Because your friends had
Yeah.
experience at the federal level. You talk about nominations, and that's usually a provincial or federal matter. What
Yeah.
made you decide that municipal was where you wanted to start? Was there an issue going on in Weyburn? Was there something going on, or was it just someone asked you to run municipally, or you just decided, let's start there?
Yeah. I think that there's a combination of a few things. I think municipal is pretty special in its own right. I think you're closest to the people. You really get to see what you're working with and people you're representing. I think the other thing is I think we moved from Calgary to Weyburn, so a much smaller community, and it's a very different feel and a different experience here. And I think that helped drive my me to run. I think. Yeah.
So, okay, you've mentioned Calgary twice now, so I've got to play in that sandbox for a bit of a few seconds. What made you move from
Yes.
Calgary to Weyburn? Was it job opportunities? Was there something else? Was it family obligations? What made you move from, and this is the host of the cross border interview saying this, not Kellie, the councillor for Weyburn, saying this, one of the greatest cities in all of Canada to the second greatest city, in my opinion, of all of Canada.
I agree. My husband and I both work oil and gas. With the downturn in the energy industry over the last 10 years, we were my husband was kind of in and out of work and doing a little more, picking up more contracts instead of full time work. He got the opportunity, he grew up here in Weyburn. His family's
Okay.
from Weyburn. He has a large family, 17 kids. So,
What?
so yes, so the
Okay.
Sidloskis it's a common name here in Weyburn. He got an opportunity to work for the city actually as a civil engineer, and that's kind of what pushed us to move here. I had an opportunity to I work land and contracts in oil and gas. I had an opportunity to take a job with a small private company here in Weyburn, and things just seemed to line up in 2020, and we decided to pull the pin and move our family here.
Well, that's a quick turnaround from 2020 to 2024 when you put your name on
Yes.
the ballot. Um, and I ask this respectfully because you say that you're the Sidloski name carries is there's a lot of you in Weyburn, but
Yeah.
there's often a sense that people can be outsiders when you come to a community, that people don't often, oh, you're not born and raised here, so you don't really know what's going on. What did you do in those 4 years when you moved to Weyburn to get ingrained into the community? Because you go out in your first attempt and you get elected. So I'm assuming not just your family voted for you, but the community voted for you. So what did you
Yeah.
do in those 4 years to make yourself feel like you were a Weyburnian? I'm not sure if what they're called in Weyburn, but
Waiver night, I think.
Weyburnite. What did you do to ingrain yourself to get to know the lay of the land? Because when you get elected, which you did, you have a lot of issues that you have to deal with in those first 100 days, which we just passed. So, what did you do leading up to that election to make sure you knew what those issues were?
Yeah, I think that when we first moved here, it was just coming. It was still COVID and coming out of COVID. So moving into a new community is isolating enough, let alone through a global pandemic. So that was interesting in itself. But I started getting involved in the community. We have three young boys, so just volunteering. They're in sports with their school, that kind of thing. And then through campaigning, when I decided that I was going to run, I decided to approach campaigning differently. I had heard differently than anyone maybe has ever kind of done it here. So every week I would meet with 2 to 3 people within the community. And this happened for 7 or 8 months leading in. So I started pretty early. And I really wanted to get a solid understanding of how people felt. people who are like-minded, people who think completely differently than I am, people in healthcare, past counselors, sports coaches, the Salvation Army, our newcomer society. I met with all kinds of people to really understand their thoughts and what they have struggled with on a municipal level and where they would like to see change. And I think that really helped.
Now, I did a bit of research on you before we jumped into this interview because I wanted to learn about what you told the local newspapers, local media outlets of why you ran. And in one of your
Mhm.
interviews, I forget, I think it was with Weyburn today. You could correct me if I'm wrong here, but you said in the first 100 days, the one thing you wanted to do, if elected, was listen and learn, because being on the other side of the table is a completely unique beast because you have to make those decisions, and those are some tough decisions you have to make. How has that listening and learning for that first 100 days been? Because we had your mayor Jeff Richards on the show just recently on our sister show, and it sounds like Weyburn went through a lot over the first 100 days in office.
Yeah.
So for you, how was that listening and learning experience? And do you feel like you are caught up to speed, or you're still learning and listening as the days progress after the 100 days in office?
Yes, we had a rocky first 100 days here in Weyburn. We got thrown in the deep end and none of us knew how to swim. No, we had some good leaders. A few people
I feel like that's
do
when we
know how
should
to.
do like the but we can't
Yeah.
swim, got the
Yeah.
pool issue. So that's why I'm saying that for
Yeah.
those who did not listen to the interview with the mayor, they
Yes.
had some issues with their pool. Continue, counselor. I
Our pool
apologize.
went down. We had 2 ammonia leaks. Our junior hockey team had to move to a different community to play. Citizens and taxpayers were frustrated, I think, as was everyone. Um, so the listening and learning came quick, fast, and furious. I think maybe in some ways it was a great way to start our term because you are in neck deep and figuring out how to get through it. Um, there's been a lot more uh, than I think I ever expected, which is okay. And I kind of told myself I didn't want to come in with judgments or with opinions on how things would be. But there's a lot more. You think you come in and you can make this huge, vast, quick difference. And government moves slow, even municipal government.
What? Breaking
And
news right here on the cross border interviews. Government is slow. What? Go ahead.
yes, so that there's been a lot of listening, there's been a lot of learning, and we are very lucky to have strong leadership and strong administration, and I think that makes it all easier for every and helps us all.
Are the decisions easy in the first 100 days? Because you, like you said, you get thrown into the deep end of the pool, again, pun intended, with so many different issues, but also along those issues, you have a budget to pass, you have the growth of your community that you have to worry about. For you, how do you make those important decisions? Because you have to rely on the recommendations from administration, but you also have to rely on the engagement of your community to listen to what your community wants and needs are. So for you, how do you make those tough decisions in those first 100 days and subsequently afterwards? Is it there a test that you put through decisions, or is it just
Yeah.
listening and hoping that you're doing the right thing for the people of your community of Weyburn?
Yeah, I believe in a team approach, and I think it's really important to have a strong team around you. So I rely on a lot of those people that I spoke to as I was campaigning. I rely on past counselors and just community members. You need their input. Um, the Probably one of the most difficult parts was the budget because it is very overwhelming and in campaigning, you hear from people, they really want to see a difference. And when you sit down and you look at the numbers, there's not all that much to play with. So there are difficult decisions as to where that money is going to go and where it's going to come from. So, yeah, I think that's probably been the biggest thing.
The the natural follow-up that I have on that statement is usually you've probably come to the realization that not 100% of the people are going to agree with you on any particular issue or any vote. Taxes are too high. Okay, you passed a budget that might see an increase or might see a 0% increase, but you need money to grow your community, and you have to do it, unfortunately, through property taxes because that's the main source of income for municipalities. How do you how do you balance the needs of the want of the community with the individual? Because I can imagine there are people who come to you and say, Counselor, I need this. I need my road fixed. Counselor, I think you're doing a great job, but we need this parking lot paved because I dropped my kids off at school at that parking lot. How do you balance those individual needs and understand that no one's ever going to be 100%, not all 10,500 residents of Weyburn are going to be behind you 20%, 100% of the time.
I think you need to be realistic about that when you're on council and know that
Is
you
that
can't.
easy?
No, not at times. I think it's more difficult than I ever thought too.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing though is having that communication. I think being open and approachable and speaking to people. A lot of people just want to be heard. I had angry citizens come up all the time, or they would post something on their social media and I would reach out and send them a message and say, hey, can we talk about this? A lot of them felt like their voices weren't heard. And at the end of it, I think you're working towards a common goal and you're trying to please people and benefit the city. But sometimes I wonder if they don't even care as much about getting the end result as they do being heard.
I love that statement. That is the perfect statement because I agree 100% with that. Because I think there's more people who feel like sometimes they're yelling into a void, whether it be social media, which
Yeah,
we all know is the complete truth of what's going on in the world at all
yeah.
given times of day. So when you do engage with people as a counselor through your day-to-day life, would you rather have that face-to-face conversation? Because there's misunderstandings through social media. There's inflections that you don't get. There's issues that you don't actually see bubbling to the surface. So when you do try to engage with people who do have issues or do have concerns or do want to talk, would you rather do that one-on-one, or would it rather be through email or phone call or social media?
Yeah, my go-to is I always ask them if they have time for a coffee. I've done that for a year now with anyone who wants to take that time and is willing to take that time. It's surprising some of them you reach out to and they don't take you up on it, and then I think maybe they realize and they become a little more quiet, or they understand that it wasn't maybe as pressing or there's reasonings behind it. But yeah, my go-to is to sit down for a coffee or pick up the phone where you can actually speak to someone. I think it's important to create those touch points, and it builds trust, and it helps communicate a lot more clear than via an email or a message on Facebook or that type of thing.
The life of a municipal leader is a full-time job, but you do not get paid full-time hours. I'm just going to put that out there in the world to dispel any disbelief that the counselor is making a large sum of money. It is a part-time job, but you have full-time hours.
Yes.
To do the job correctly, you have to have a good family support system around you. You talk about your husband, you talk about your kids. How important in the first 100 days was it to strike that balance of when Kellie is Kellie and when Kellie is counselor? Because the moment you leave your door, your house, the four walls that you were surrounded by, and you go out to the community, you're no longer Kellie anymore. You're counselor. So for that first 100 days, have you found that balance of being Kellie at home and Kellie in the when you're with your family, and counselor when you're with your family as well?
I think it's always a work in progress.
You've
I
listened
have
to this show before.
a couple episodes. I My husband is incredibly supportive. I always tried to encourage him to run, and he told me that I would be a much um, better face than he is. So he looks after the kids. He helps support at home when we need that. The first 100 days has been it's been a little more, especially given what's gone on here in Weyburn. It's been a little more intensive than I think I ever expected. So it is finding that balance. And people are pretty respectful for the most part. I'll get the odd question when I'm out with my family or my kids, but for the most part, they'll let it be and be respectful of that. My kids do see that it takes a lot longer to grocery shop or go do things in the community, because usually a conversation does ensue it to some extent.
So does your husband do the grocery shopping? Because I've heard countless times from counselors to say, just the spouse, just stay at home because I need just milk and I don't want it to be an hour-long trip to the grocery store for just one carton of milk. Um,
Yes, or the wonderful thing about COVID is grocery pickup. So we don't have I don't think we have delivery here, but we can pick up. So that's kind of that helps.
oh, even better. I want to turn to the city as a whole now. And before I do that, I'm going to preface this conversation with the following. So if you've heard this before, skip forward about 15 to 20 seconds. If not, stay with us. This is a conversation between the counselor and myself. This is not a motion of council, not a direction of council, not a policy of council. This is the counselor's opinion and her opinion alone. Now, it may line up with what's going on at council, but at the end of the day, she needs a majority of votes on council to pass anything, to move anything, or to direct administration to get things done. So, with that being said, for those who are about to send me emails, please send them to me and I will file them away in the appropriate location. Counselor, in your opinion, as of recording this at the beginning of April 2025, what do you see as the biggest challenge or challenges facing the city of Weyburn today?
I think we have two main ones. I think one is an infrastructure deficit. I think people listening to your podcast, I think there are lots of places that are in the same position. And I think a focus on economic development right now, which in turn, those two things can work together. There's a lot, I kind of touched on it before, there's a lot to do and there's only so much funds that you have to do so. So how do we attract people? How do we build our tax base? And how are we able to get some of these projects done, stay on top of them, and not allow ourselves to feel bogged down by everything at once?
So, how do you do that? Because you're right. Growing your community through economic development, attracting businesses, retaining businesses that are there is very
Yeah.
challenging in today's economic world. And I can imagine, as you just said, you know that every other municipality is trying to do the exact same thing. So what sets Weyburn apart from other communities to make it an attractive place to invest their business, invest their economic dollars? Because you probably know the pitch, so give us the pitch. Why should people, what is the opportunities, and I'm setting you up here, what are the opportunities of Weyburn that sets you apart?
I wish I could share this with everybody because moving to Weyburn has been one of the best things for our family. I loved Calgary. We had a great time while we lived there, but as a working mother with three young kids, the ability to balance life, work, life, and extracurricular activities, everything else, seemed to be a lot easier to do here. It's a great place to raise a family. I tell my kids all the time, sometimes they'll miss some things from Calgary that we don't have here. But I tell them all the time that they have the ability to roam the community freely. They're on their bikes. They have a much more similar childhood to what I had growing up than I think that they would have gotten in Calgary. And maybe I'm wrong there, but I think it is a fantastic place for young families. And I hope that we can share that, advocate for ourselves. I think people have a hard time doing that, and really showcase what we have to offer here. And hopefully that can help people look and see maybe it's not a bad place to bring our families.
What priorities are council and yourself looking at in the next 3 years? Because you're just in the early days of your first mandate to attract new businesses. Is it going out and reaching out? Is it working with your surrounding neighbors? Because I know Mayor Richards, that's one of his big priorities is to have build stronger relationships with the surrounding communities to attract, because what's good for Weyburn is also good for I'm gonna get this wrong here, but I think it's Yellowgrass that's just north of you. I could. Oh,
Yep.
look at that! I am right. Oh, I remember my
Yellowgrass.
I remember
Estevan down the road.
exactly.
Yep.
So what do you see as your job, your responsibility as counselor to help facilitate that attraction of getting people to Weyburn to set up a business, whether it be small, medium, or an industrial business? Because I know Weyburn's soil is rich for agriculture, and
Yeah.
I think I've read somewhere half a ton or a ton, something some ton of
Yeah.
grain goes through Weyburn every year because it is a prime agricultural area for farmers and growers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it is important to advocate for ourselves and to build those relationships. I think I always say there's no use in starting from scratch. Let's look at other communities and places where things have worked and see if we can implement that here. So that's talking to our neighbors, talking to our friends, talking to other municipalities that might be further away to listen and learn what worked there and what can we do here that might have the same result. I think that's really important.
So I've asked you the good question. Now I'm going to have to ask you the semi-challenging political question on the political show, which is about political municipalities. Um, Infrastructure is a key concern for many municipalities right now, and Weyburn's not alone in that. And we talked about it at the beginning about around budgets and balancing the needs and wants of your community, growing your community, but knowing that the major source of income that you have are property taxes. I'm not preaching to anyone, but I'm going to say this. It's challenging out there for people right now, and people are living paycheck to paycheck. There's a high use of food banks across Canada, not just in Weyburn, but across Canada. The municipality does have a role to play in helping alleviate some of those pressures, but you also have to grow your community. How do you see yourself being able to grow the community, whether it be through those infrastructure projects, because there's aging infrastructure that we're dealing with, and not doing it on the backs of people who are going paycheck to paycheck? Because if you raise taxes by 1%, that could be someone not going to the grocery store this week or next week or this month. So how do you see your role as counselor in growing your community, but not doing it on the backs of the people who are there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple different pieces there. I think that one would be strengthening our relationships with other levels of government, finding out where there's grants or where there's opportunities to advocate for ourselves and get a little bit of help in those areas. I think that's number one. Number two is making sure that we talk to the taxpayers and understand where people are at. It can't it definitely cannot be on the backs of them, and people are struggling right now. The cost of living over the last few years has taken a substantial hit on the average family. So that is to be aware of that while making decisions, I think is really important.
Do you think you're able to do it? So you've gone through your first budget through this council, and I know you weren't involved at the early stages because it usually gets started in the previous council before the new council passes it. But do you feel like you have a good team around you with Mayor Richards, your fellow councillors? Because you are one of the two newest councillors on the council. So do you feel like you have a good foundation to do that, to listen to the people? Because that's one of your priorities that you wanted to do in your first 100 days.
Yeah, I think we have an incredible team in there right now. I think that we also have a focus on some long-term planning, looking at what I think to have a little bit of foresight as to what's coming. Not to say it hasn't been done before, but just a fresh new group to take a look at it and say, how can we prioritize these? What is urgent right now, and how can we invest and extend the longevity of what we have here? If you're constantly fixing the same potholes over and over again, if you're constantly putting funds into repairing things, is there ways that we can look at approaching things differently and extending the life of it? And with a new group and what I feel is a strong council in there, I hope that we can work with administration to look at some of these things. We have a fantastic administration. We have a young leadership team. And I think that that can work to your advantage to take a look at different ways to approach things.
You we often talk about challenges, and I want to flip the script because I think opportunities are something that we need to chat about more about and the good things that go on in your community. And I know we've talked about the bad things. The first 100 days have been sort of a wrecking ball for any
Yep.
municipal leader, even if you're in Weyburn or a five-term councillor. I can imagine just what you went through was probably very stressful, very challenging, and you had a great support team around you to deal with it. Well, what are the good things that have gone on in your time in office so far? What are the things that you look at and you say, you know what, we went through that ammonia, those two ammonia leaks, we went through the pool challenges, but we've got this going for us. What was that thing that you saw in the first 100 days that made you hopeful for Weyburn and the growth that has to come for the next 3 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it's the strengthening of the community and the relationships. In hard times, I think people really come together, and you can see to have that showcased and see firsthand. That's really, really exciting. I think just having this leadership team that is ready to take on new things, it makes me very hopeful for the future, and I think we've got a good thing going.
Awesome. I want to turn to a weird segment, but I've never introduced it, but it's new because this is the first time I've actually sat down with a new counselor who has never served on council before, and they're in their first 6 months of being in office. Now, we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the interview, but I want to dive into it a little bit more if you don't mind. What was the eye-opening experience for you? What was the moment where you went, what have I gotten myself into? Because when you first put your name on the ballot, you can expect 100 things are going to go some way, but you never know how it's going to be until you're actually sitting behind that table. For you, what advice would you have given candidate Kellie that you wish you would have known prior to getting involved into municipal politics?
That's a good question. Um, I think I would tell myself to be open and understanding of the job that administration does in City Hall. I think the biggest eye opening experience was sitting down to do the budget, and you see the cut list. And these are real projects and real things that need to be done, and real things that are going to have to take a back seat. And inevitably, you're going to hear about it from taxpayers and community members. But I think just stressing that we are all a team and working in the right direction, and being maybe a little more understanding or compassionate for what they're facing there too. I think they get given a hard time, and you come in thinking that you will be able to make a big difference and make some changes. And when you sit down and look at the budget, it's really eye-opening. I think I wish everyone got a chance to deep dive it, or took the time to deep dive it, because they would realize that there are hard decisions to be made, not just from on a council level, but in City Hall with administration.
I often talk about the jurisdictional purview of each level of government on this show, and you're nodding your head, so you know where this question's going. But prior to getting involved, I often hear that people don't really understand. I'm not saying you didn't, because you had that political background where you had conversations with people before you got involved, but when you get involved, you realize the small scope that the municipality plays, but on a broader scale, you play a larger role in everyday lives of people than, say, the provincial or federal government. Was it weird trying to figure out how to fix issues that are not in your jurisdictional purview, as in the provincial or federal, that you have no control over, you have no say over, but people want to have you fix it because you are
Yeah.
the closest to them, and they probably know who you are because your family is well known in the area
Yeah.
than their MLA or their MP.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have a lot of those conversations that take place. And I don't think that I don't think it's something to brush off and just say, no, that's not in our scope. Maybe some people feel that way. I think that it's really important to have those conversations. I think it is important to advocate for those people when we can. We have those relationships with our MLA and with our MP and hope to strengthen those. So I think if we are able to bring across some of what we're hearing, that will be of benefit. I think it's also talking to people and helping them understand the right chain of events to speak to someone. I think people are quick to post to social media or to take other routes. When I had someone reach out to me on a municipal level this last week, and I thanked them for taking the right process to bring a complaint forward.
Good for them.
So I think just educating those people and tell if it is a provincial level issue, if it is a federal issue, let's help them show them how they can advocate for themselves and they can make grounds if they're looking to make some change.
You and I live this for a living. You're a municipal councillor. I'm one of these weird people that watches council meetings on a Friday night because that's what I find fun times. Um, so I understand the roles that municipalities play. So how often do you find yourself in your first few months of being in office telling people, well, I would love to help you. Let's try and work together, but that's an issue for your MLA or your MP, or that's not something we can fix right now because we just don't have the money and we passed the budget. And unfortunately, we have to wait 2 more years to get the money saved up to potentially work on that project that's very near and dear to their heart.
Yeah, I think we have those conversations all the time. And I think it's important when I'm speaking with people to ensure that they know I'm learning too. So I think
Yeah.
it's education on all fronts. We're all just learning how to get through this and how to make a difference. And it's being patient and ensuring that we are improving that communication and building those relationships.
Have you enjoyed it though?
Yes. Yeah, I have. I'm
Okay.
also one of those nerds that watches council meetings in my spare time.
Glad I'm not the only one. Kelly, I want to turn to my last segment now, and this is my favorite segment because I think you were in earshot of me telling this to Mayor Richards at Budget
Yep.
2025. I'm coming down to Weyburn in a week. So I'm going to be coming through, and every time that I come through, I always try to look for the hidden gems, the tourist destinations that I should stop in and see. And everyone has their own unique viewpoints on what people should see as tourists. So, what's yours? What are the hidden gems in Weyburn that people need to stop and see when they're in the city?
We have a fantastic arts community. We have some very strong leaders in our arts community that have advocated for themselves here and have started to make a name for themselves, which has been fantastic. So, in our Spark Center, which is also a gem of a facility, you should definitely stop in there. We have our art gallery, where we showcase different different exhibits all the time. So you just missed our James Weir People's Choice, which was fantastic. It's all local people who submit their art, and so that's probably definitely a highlight. We're not quite at the time yet, but we also have a fantastic pickleball community. It's
How
I
often
hear
do you find yourself talking about pickleball now? I don't know what it is, but in the last 2 years, pickleball seems to be the craze for every
I hear
municipality.
it's the largest growing sport. We have our pickleball community last year advocated for themselves, and they converted one of our outdoor skating rinks into multiple pickleball courts. And so we had a grand opening last summer. We had people come from all different communities, and we're now being known in the pickleball community for what they've done and what we have here. So when it gets warmer out, I think that is a perfect thing to take a peek at. And we also have 8.5 kilometers of trails through Weyburn, which is fantastic.
Oh,
So I think those are a few highlights.
so what's your favorite spot? I'm going to ask the Sophie's Choice question right now because we all have that one spot in the community that we live in that we like to go to, that we can escape to, that we can decompress. And I am very hard pressed not to be able to say this and not mean it, but over the last 4 months of you being in office, you probably had a very stressful 4 months. I'm just gonna put that out there. Where in this community, where in the city have you gone to just let it all go and just recenter yourself. And I'm going to say this because everyone wants to say their house because that's their safe space. You can't say your own house. Where in the community do you go to just let it all go and recenter yourself?
Yeah, I'm one for the walking trails. On the really cold days, we have our Spark Center, which has an indoor track, so you can find me walking in there, or else out on the trails with my kids and or a girlfriend or my husband. Just get a good way to let loose a little and kind of escape from everyday life.
So you heard it here first, Weyburniates. If you want to find the counselor and you have an issue, go to the walking trail or go to the trail system.
That's that's
Um,
right.
Counselor, I have one last $1 million question for you. And we've talked about it briefly in the show, but I want you to encapsulate it and give me in the elevator pitch. What makes Weyburn such a unique place to live, to work, and to raise a family?
Well, we are called the Opportunity City. And I truly believe that there is opportunity here. It is what you make it. So I think that I did touch on it before bringing my family here. I think that it is it's probably common in smaller centers, but the sense of community is incredible. You never feel alone. My 5-year-old probably knows more people than I do. Every time we go out somewhere, he's talking to people of all ages. Um, it takes a village, and you have that village here. You have that support from your neighbors and your friends, and I think that it's really, really important to highlight that.
Okay, I said that was my last question, but you broached the subject, so I have to ask the weird question. Young kids are awesome, especially when their parents are in the political realm. How much does your 5-year-old use the fact that mom is a counselor with his friends, his school mates, or is that something that even interests him right now?
Oh, yes, he's asked quite a few questions. He approached me and told me that he expected council, when they built a new pool, to ensure that there was a bungee jump installed. um, he's had all kinds of questions, and I think that was one of the more rewarding parts of campaigning too, was getting the kids involved. I had all kinds of my friends' kids, kids in the community who got really excited and really involved and asked questions about the process. And I think to inspire those kids and to educate them at a young age and introduce them into municipal politics is pretty special. And so I hope to continue doing that. And I think you have that advantage when you have a few rugrats yourself.
Counselor Kellie, I want to thank you so much for just brightening up my morning. This has been a fantastic interview. I am so honored that you were wanting to come on the show when I reached out to you when we talked at the budget in Regina last month, by the time this airs. So thank you so much for doing this. I feel like this is going to be the start of a beautiful municipal friendship. So thank you
I,
so much.
Well, I want to thank you, Chris, because your podcast, I feel, was instrumental in my campaigning. When you come into it, I think you feel very vulnerable. You're overwhelmed at times. I questioned myself all the time. Do I have what it takes? Do I know enough? Do I have enough history of the community? And having the ability to log in and listen to your podcasts and hear stories from other people, that really, really helped me transition and gain confidence in hearing other people's stories. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate those kind words. I'm assuming you're going to be at the Saskatchewan Urban Municipality Association conference in about 2 weeks' time. By the time we're recording this, a week's time by the time this
Yes,
airs. So let's connect there. And if we do not connect in while I'm in Weyburn next weekend, okay?
that sounds good. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Cross Border Interviews. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights into Weyburn, Saskatchewan. To stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, and follow us on social media. For even more content and learn more about the stories and people we feature on this show, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Now, your support means the world to us. So share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help us keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you next time here on Cross Border Interviews.